Well, Corey Lowe is here with us now. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing good too.
Yep, I'm doing as good as I can do. I suppose there's nothing really going wrong at the moment, so that's fine. So, your podcast is called Guard Your Heart. So, can you just describe the basic idea of the podcast for us, first of all?
Sure thing. Yes, it's called Guard Your Heart.
Yeah.
It is a Christian podcast. I'm from Chicago. I have grown up in the inner city of the United States of Chicago, Illinois. It's the point of the podcast is about reaching out and to help others and to show people that the church, that Christianity, the faith is actually legit and that is actually a pure faith and that it will be there to help people when they need it.
Yeah.
I started this podcast keeping in mind about the tragedy of the pandemic and how a lot of people felt alone and felt like nobody could be there for them or speak to them or reach out to them. And so I just want to show that that doesn't have to be the case.
Yeah. And who would you say your target audience? Is it people who are religious, or because the fact that you mentioned part of the podcast is to sort of prove that Christianity is real, is it also people that aren't religious but you want to persuade?
Well, it's a little bit of both, actually. Of course, I want to reach others who are religious first.
Yeah.
But then, of course, I also, as a Christian, I am called to outreach and to spread the news. So I want to reach those who don't believe and those who don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And as far as not just even trying to prove, but just as far as just to help people in general. So it won't even matter if you believe or if you don't believe.
Yeah.
If I can help you in some way, if you can be helped, I'd like to see that helped and just see good done in the world as well.
Yeah. And if somebody isn't particularly religious, I suppose they might not go out of their way to search for a Christian podcast. So how do you appeal to those people still?
That's a good question. I've actually thought a lot about that. And while the center of my message is always enrooted with the Bible, what I have to say can be applied whether you believe in it or not. For example, one of my episodes I talk about health, and the basis of my message is that God created us with the intention of being healthy human beings, and we need to take care of our body. Now, whether you believe in God or not, you still need to be a healthy human being so that you can actually live and enjoy life.
Yeah. And I guess a lot of the teachings of religion are stuff that most people would agree with, do you think?
That's true. I think it comes down to the actual, the whole practicing, the applying it. Like, is this person living what they're saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Because it doesn't matter sometimes, because, for some people, it just doesn't matter whether they believe in it or not. If they see somebody doing something a certain way and backing it up, you respect that person.
Yeah. So what kind of topics do you like to discuss in the podcast then?
Well, I am so far 10 episodes in.
Yeah.
I have talked about things such as, like I said, health. I've talked about prayer. I've talked about some of the issues within the church and how we're viewed by the world.
Yeah.
I've also talked about how we as the church, for example, need to show mercy and compassion for others. There's been a lot of social unrest these last couple of years.
Yeah.
And my whole point on that is, instead of us judging and, trying to pick a side immediately, why don't we see what kind of help and good that we can do?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I suppose this pandemic nearly has been a couple years. We're almost there, I suppose.
Yeah. As long as that new strain out there doesn't get worse.
Yeah. And has the pandemic helped you in a way to have a little bit more time to focus on recording these episodes?
Oh, yes, it has.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate world out there, but it's given me extra time to be able to sit down and just try to record and edit more. And it really helped me. It really gave me more time to learn and to read again so that I could get better at this.
Yeah. And since the pandemic, podcasting has probably boomed quite a lot, and there are probably more podcasts than ever. So what do you do to set yourself apart from other people that perhaps might be trying to do a similar thing?
Well, I don't really think about what I can and cannot do to set myself apart. I just want to get the truth out there and try and help people.
Yeah.
And that's mainly where my focus is. I do ask those who listen to spread, to share and support. I'm on multiple different platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, but it's mainly just about me trying to help and reach people. And as long as I'm doing that, I think it'll grow in time.
Yeah. And have you been wanting to do this since before the pandemic, or was it something that just came about from the extra time?
I've this has been in the making way before the pandemic.
Yeah.
I grew up in the church, and so the whole concept of outreaching and trying to help others, it's pretty much been embedded into my very soul.
Yeah.
I'll say that the pandemic helped me really focus down specifically how I wanted to begin to do it.
Yeah. And have you found that equipment has been harder to come by because it's been in such high demand?
It's been a little bit of a problem. I've actually, thank God for Amazon. I had to get a few mics and stuff off of Amazon. I've actually had some technical difficulties lately. Right before this interview, I was emailing saying, hey, I need to get this fixed.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's just so annoying, all these technical issues. And touch wood, I haven't had any recently. I mean, sometimes something goes wrong and I'm like, oh no, what's going on? And it turns out I just haven't turned my microphone on or something really simple. But I've never had any problems that are actually problems rather than me just being stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you first come up with the idea to do the podcast in the first place, right at the very start?
Right. Google. I I have Guard Your Heart is not just a podcast. Guard Your Heart is also a Christian blog. It's actually Guard Your Soul, guardyoursoul.net. And guardyoursoul.net's been up for about a year now, where it's just my thoughts, my views about life and the Bible. And it's also me asking for prayer requests like I do on my podcast. And it's prayers that I've prayed and written out. And so I was just thinking about ways to expand it, and Google I actually typed it in kind of blankly, other ways to promote, and podcasts came up. So
yeah, I guess it's interesting. And podcasts are more popular than ever. It's a really growing thing, apparently. And I suppose it's a one-to-one medium as well, which is quite good. So the listener has a very personal relationship with the host, which is probably the best way to do a podcast like yours. I guess it wouldn't really work the same if it was a magazine or something.
Right, yeah. And also on that, as I continue to grow, they get to see that journey. Well, they get to hear that journey more specifically, just my improvement over time and how I come off, how I deliver things. And it's actually, I really like that idea of, as I continue to figure things out more and more, and you see that quality, increase in my episodes. If you're an early listener, you see that and you see improvement and and it's like we get to grow together.
Yeah. So in terms of what's actually in the podcast, is it you for the whole time, or do you sometimes bring on people to come on with you?
Well, I'm in the very beginning, so I haven't been blessed yet to bring other people on. I definitely like to do that in the future. Right now, it's me. An average episode is anywhere between 10 to 14 minutes. I have a lot of things to say, but I just don't want to. But I want to make sure that each episode I'm making a clear, concise point, and then stopping there and leaving you wanting more.
Yeah. Is it hard to talk for 10 to 14 minutes straight? I take it that takes a lot of preparation, or are you just quite passionate and know what you're doing anyway?
It's a little bit of both, honestly. some episodes are easier for me to record than others. Some I can kind of do just straight through and then come back and just clean everything up. Other times I'll take a break in between.
Yeah.
It takes, on average, for a 10-minute episode, it takes me a couple of hours to get done.
Yeah.
No matter how I try to record it and edit it, it's going to take me a few hours. If I'm there was one episode, my You Deserve It episode.
Ooh.
That one was one I was really, really passionate about because I feel like a lot of times people hold themselves back and they beat themselves down, and we don't realize just how much we deserve to be happy. So I really wanted to get that message out there, and it came forth, and I did it really quickly, actually.
Yeah. And I guess when you do it really quickly, does that feel like you've done some great work that day?
Yeah, it does. And then it does. Getting the audio out sometimes, because like I said, I've had trouble with my microphone a few times, and so when I get a nice smooth day like that, it feels really good.
But what doesn't feel really good is, I don't know if this has happened to you, but sometimes you record a whole passionate thing and it's the best thing ever, and then you realise that you weren't actually recording, or the sound was awful, so you have to do it all again.
Oh, I'll do you one better. My 6th episode that I was trying to record, I recorded that episode 4 times because I kept having audio issues, or the software would mess up my recording and put words in different places. And I was just, I was not happy about that.
Yeah, technology is frustrating, but at least it's better than it was 10 years ago. Because imagine if we had the pandemic then. I suppose it wouldn't be too bad 10 years ago, but maybe the 70s would be awful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's... I'm lucky. I'm blessed.
And back to the subject of guests, really. If you were to have some guests on your podcast, what kind of people would you be looking for?
Oh, honestly, that is, as I like to always say, that is a case-by-case situation. It depends on what that person is about, what I want to talk about that day. It could be health, it could be sports, it could be religion, it could be Christianity, it could be a different religion. You can be Muslim, Hindu, or something. You can not believe in God at all. You could have a personal issue and you just want to talk to about it, and you're willing to talk to about it with me on the podcast.
Yeah.
I am pretty open about it, and I want to stay pretty open about that.
Yeah. And is your religion a big part of your own personal life then?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I was raised this way since I was a small child. My parents, who unfortunately are no longer here, they were heavy in the church. They were strong believers in the Christian faith, and it's just been passed down to me.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you must be very passionate about it if it's been in your life forever, and that will come across really well in the podcast, and then it's authentic, which is always good. You don't want a podcast that doesn't sound authentic.
Yes, that's true. And I'll say it to you, and I said it on my podcast, if somebody hears something or sees something and it's not lining up, please call me out immediately, because I don't need to be doing this if I'm not going to be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where are we able to have a little listen to the podcast if we'd like to?
Certainly. You can use Anchor, you can use Google Podcasts, you can use Spotify. It's Guard Your Heart, Corey Bryant Lowe. I'm on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show today. It's been great having you here.
Thank you. I've been glad to be here.